Hello, everyone, and welcome to Challenge 18 weekly webinar. And now we have our one of the favorite guest speakers, Ferial Puren, and she's a good friend of mine and a big heart and architect of change and like someone who can really juggle so many balls at the same time successfully. So really one of a kind. And I could go on and on, but I think we'll explore more throughout the discussion, which will be more fun than just an introduction. So what's the topic for today? It's about reimagining the future. It's about future imagery. As Ferrier likes to say, it's a SRG, stop, reset, and go. And I'll let her to explain. It's just like, it's like a meme. It becomes a meme. So yeah, about Feriel as a strategist, consultant, specializing in evolutionary social systems. She blends her expertise in influence to help create a better future for all, a whole new system, a paradigm shift, and a more eco-friendly civilization. I'll keep it simple, and this is more for now, what we have for now. And let me ask with the first question. Feriel, how are you? How do you do?
I am really great, Sharon, and I'm so grateful for being here and for you asking me to join in and to share a little bit about the work I do in my part of the world. And yeah, I think we've known each other for a while, and it's really great to be able to share a bit more with the public, I guess, what we're doing behind the scenes all the time. So thank you for having me.
No, seriously, I absolutely, completely, and totally thank you for this conversation. It's a great opportunity for more like-minded people to hear our amazing ideas, and especially SRG. I'd like you definitely to talk more about it. But I think like as you work on so many ideas to make the world a better place, so do you really believe that we can achieve a better world, like a world peace? Like, how do you see the future for future humanity, and like what will happen in 2030, let's say, by the time we, or some of, I don't know if we'll achieve or not achieve the SDGs. I think Bhutan is the only country kingdom that actually is achieving the SDG. But I mean, let's say, okay, how do you engage with the SDG directly? Okay, what happens by 2030 if, say, we don't achieve the SDGs? And again, like I repeat, like how do you see us achieving a better world? Yeah.
So, Sharon, you're asking some big questions, right? Now, whilst I do not have a crystal ball, despite the fact that I'm told my ancestors, I come from a line of witches. So I'm going to just not go for the crystal ball today. And I really want to have some real talk, I think, today, right? And what I mean by this is really sense make from what we do know and what we are possibly capable of is what I want to say. So before I came onto this call, and before I like to take some time to sense make, right? And so I took a walk. I live in Scotland, so I live in a beautiful little town called Dalgety Bay. It's at the sea. And I walked down to the beach just before this, and I went and I stood and I just, because there has to be a reason for all of this, right? There has to be a reason we want to save something, right? It has to be worth it. And so for me, every time I'm looking out at the ocean, I'm looking out at the beautiful surroundings, and I ask, and this is why it's worth it. When I'm looking at the humans walking, and I'm looking at the dogs barking, and I'm looking at nature, and of which I'm a part of, and that is for me that inspiration for it's worth it.
Yeah.
Right? We're worth it, as in creation. All of what is that I'm a part of is worth it because it is so beautiful. And there are moments that it even takes your breath away. That's the beauty that you experience, right? And so I want to start there, and I want to say, You asked quite a few different questions there, so I'm going to try and like dig into a few of them. But my first thing would be to understand a problem. So this was a little while ago. I actually attended this course with a very amazing guy called Meir Ezra, and he's a Jewish man who lives in South Africa, and he spoke of you know, the reasons for, if when you're looking at a problem, the answer is in the problem. So in other words, it presents you with how do you undo it. This is the challenge. So I'm going to call it a challenge because I don't like the word problem. Right. So you asked me a question. You asked questions like, all of this, how do we untangle this? How do we get to, the world that we want to, that we kind of desire in our hearts, many of us anyway. And I want to say there is no easy way there. That's the simple truth, because we're dealing with an incredible amount of complexity, right? But what I can say is, now I'm going to give you a paradox. There is a simple way there, and I think we are that simple way. And what that means for me is to understand the problem, which I think we are the challenge, right? Because nature always evolves. And this is what we've observed, right? When you work in the social sciences and when you're looking at, just the scientific field, which is the understanding of everything that we're a part of, you start to, no matter which field of science you're coming at this from, you start to recognize that nature has this incredible rhythms by which it designs. Right. And when you observe a little bit more, you see that we're part of that rhythm. And so the thing that is unfortunate for us, and maybe also fortunate, so I'm going to talk about a lot of paradoxes today. And what I mean by that is that we only, as one individual human, we only get to be a very tiny part of a very incredible, beautiful cosmic story.
Yeah.
In other words, we don't know much about our story. So how do you design? How do you look forward when you don't know much? So I think there's some work that we can do with this. And what I mean by this is, what if we were to learn more about our story? And what if, so I know that we do some attempts, but I think these are very feeble attempts that we make with our education, where we look at, history, we study geography, but it's amidst a bunch of other things. And the thing for me is, no matter how much studying we're going to do, we will never really know our whole story. There are huge parts in our story where we did not record anything. In fact, when I do some work, I've realized it's only about, I think, the last 5,000 years that we've actually got recorded human history. And we've got a few other artifacts and paintings on cave walls and things like that, I think dating back closer to 16,000 years ago.
Like some main narratives that were recorded, but so many others that were lost in time,
Absolutely. And we told stories as well. So this is one of the things in trying to understand our story. I realized there was so much woven into mythology. So we say myth, but they were stories, we didn't have ways of writing it down or recording it other than telling each other stories. So a lot of our stories hold so much of the truths of our story, and it is one of the reasons I think we're so drawn to reading books and watching movies. I love movies. I love seeing how those other worlds unfolded, because I think we've always been storytellers. And so
your keyword here is like, you say stories, and you say like the stories we tell ourselves will shape the future. The songs that we're gonna sing gonna shape.
There we go. So now you're onto something here, because I think now becomes the question, what stories are we telling, right? So in the meantime, let me go back a little bit, and let me let me look at some of the broad strokes of our story. So one of the things I know that we've got versions of the story, right? Because some of us are creationists and some of us are, coming at this from the scientific mind, and we're coming at it from various perspectives. I think we're trying to accomplish the same thing, right? But so I'm going to try and steer clear of some of the sticky stuff, right? And I'm going to say, let's just take some of our story. At some point, we've kind of we've grown out of. At some point, we had so this is the other interesting thing that I discovered through my work is that they've just gone out. Don't take my word for this. Maybe go do a bit of homework yourself, right? But they say that all humans today that are alive, we actually share a common ancestor, a woman.
I mean, the story of the biblical, of the creation, you have Adam and Eve, right?
Well, there could be that. So scientists will call that mitochondrial Eve, right? Because Eve, so whatever that is, I think the stories, they can interlace with one another. But as I said, I don't want to get involved with the sticky stuff right now. I'm just going to say we're family. So that's the first thing about us that I'd say that's some of our story. Now, the other part of our story is as a family, we have gone through a lot of crazy stuff. So excuse my French, but some shit has gone down. What I mean by this is we've killed one another, enslaved one another, raped one another, stole from one another, murdered.
I tell you, it's not
you fair. Name it, those seven deadly sins, we've done it, right? To one another. And then, of course, also to nature. Yeah. So what I'm going to say here is let's look back at that story. So that story leaves us with a lot of pain. Yeah. It's been a grand, beautiful cosmic adventure, but it also has produced.
That's why I say that I am the whole humanity, and it kind of solves the complexity and the separation, and the suffering, the collective suffering in us. If you see a human as layers of identity, so usually people refer to the core layer, in the heart. It's like, this is me, my body, but my body is not who I am. My name, my hands, it's not who I am. It's mine. So who I am. Okay, like you said, we have a mutual ancestor, right? We are all. Okay, so when I adopt such a mindset that in the core, I'm the whole humanity, and then whatever layer, like, okay, I'm part of this family, this tribe, this nation, and so on, then there is no separation. We are all one. This is,
and I think that's a bit of a conundrum to get our heads around.
And this is a story. You're talking here about future storytelling. So once we all get to this understanding, then
so that would be the thing. We should start having some agreement on some of our story, because this is going to help us. So one of the things that we talk about in some of the work that I do is we talk about being a psycho-bio-socio-cultural interbecoming. And what I mean by this is so it's a long word, but it kind of describes us more than human being, right? Because psycho, that psychological endeavor. So in other words, it really is that thinking, feeling part of you. It is your it is that part that we would normally have that spiritual endeavor through. Like, who am I? Why am I here? Why, the part where we look at our values and why, that kind of stuff. That's your psycho part. Your bio part is your biological. This is this part that you see right now. And some of us have beautiful curly hair like me, and others have brown eyes and blue eyes, and others have whatever, and arms and legs, and some of us miss an arm and a leg. But
I just read the research that the self does not exist. We change constantly according to the environment and the people we hang out with, and so imagine how this shape our mindset, and more than
exactly
who we are.
So learning about who we are is so pivotal, and learning outside of what we would term the school environment. I want to tell you, Sharon, I am one of those people that most of my learning has actually happened outside of school.
Yeah.
And I grew up in apartheid South Africa with a brown skin, which meant that it wasn't easy for me to go to university and get degrees and get all these things. And today, a lot of my colleagues are doctors of all kinds of different things, and but I'm able to communicate and connect and spar with them because of the fact that I obtained my knowledge outside of the environment of an institution. And I would encourage that so much, that we are smart, we are capable of learning so much, and we shouldn't define ourselves by the little accolades that we can put behind our names, but define yourself by, why is it that I'm here? What is my magic, my genius? Because your genius is part of how we get to that beautiful, wonderful, emerging world that we want to be a part of, the world that is better than the one that you and I are in today. So I think that thing about the story, firstly, who we are, where we come from, and I want to just very quickly stop around that pain part, right? There's been a lot of pain, a lot of what psychologists would call trauma.
Yeah.
So individual as well as collective, we have, from the beginning of when we can think of, we've been enslaving or exploiting each other, and at some point we even discovered that we can exploit nature. And so all of a sudden, hundreds and thousands of years later, we find ourselves here, and now we have the mess because of all of that exploitation. So how do you draw a line in the sand, right? How do you go, okay, this is here now? Because we want to hold someone accountable, right? We want restoration. We've got all these forums, and we talk about equity, and we talk about equalities, and we talk about gender equality. There's just a bunch of stuff in our history that, how do we rectify the wrongs?
So maybe you tell me in accordance to what you are working on, because everyone has his own things that motivates him and gives him a sense of purpose. So maybe you want to tell about the things you work on, like I mentioned in the introduction, SRG, which I love it. It's a great way to to inspire and lead a change and to illustrate how we can actually, like, to future imagine together how we can change, how we can actually stop the capitalistic model for our for humanity as we manage our social economical systems. So the corona has shown us that we can stop, right? And at least slow down, like like in India, when the trains slow down and people in stations, they don't stop, and people get up on the train. So I say, if progress is like a train, right? It's a metaphor. Then how, as per what you see, imagine and work, because again, you are an amazing activist, and like, you're doing real things, you're really changing the world. So I'd love you to share more of this. And
I think I want to start by saying it is about discovering your individual genius and your individual magic, because that there's something about that. It's almost, again, I want to go back to a recent trip that I did back to where I'm originally from, South Africa. I live in Scotland, as I mentioned, and I have for the last 2 decades, but originally I am from South Africa. And then that's an interesting path, because my family also originally come from Indonesia, Java to be particular. So, and there's some mix of Arab and some Indian and some other things in there, right? So what I'm saying here is that there is this incredible, so I talked about story. Now I have my own story, as you have your own story, Sharon, and as most people that are going to be listening to this have their own story. There is a lineage of humans that have come before us and that have contributed significantly to me being here today, to you being here today.
yeah.
And I think we don't often give enough credit or think about those sacrifices and those the price really that was paid for me to be here. Right. And I think that is the moment we begin to honor that in a greater way, we also already writing an important part of our story, already understanding an important part of our story. But
Well,
there's the other part of this is that
I'm just trying to picture how to measure this. The price
that
like
was paid
yes,
for you and for
like
me.
like really, you know, I was just talking about an idea for an app, you know, that measures the number of words you say each day. Which are the main keywords that are positive and negative, and then like scaling and show you on the scale, like how many, like were you more positive or negative, right?
I guess
So
this is the other part of it is our ancestors. There's always, but there's also, I talked about the pain a moment ago. There's also the negative, right, that has come
yeah,
from some that activity. And I think there's that moment for us to acknowledge that within every one of our lineage, there's that. And then there is some of the beautiful, positive, we call them ancient wisdoms, you know, that they've also given us. And so it is that wisdom that we must have in this moment. And I think that's the other part of it. You know how we always, I'm not saying we shouldn't look back and we shouldn't learn from, but we shouldn't live in the past. We
absolutely.
shouldn't hold on to the heavinesses that the past might present for us.
I,
But
I have
actually,
I have a great metaphor, like a story, that how actually to let go of the past. You know, a butterfly, it was once a caterpillar, right? But he doesn't know he's a caterpillar because now he's a butterfly. He
that's
went
why.
through a whole, you know, like reincarnation, metamorphosis, you know, transformation to become a completely new self, letting all the past behind.
Yeah. And we remember it because it is our journey here, but we don't allow it to determine who we are today. Right? In the sense of we have, because then there is that wonderful moment of everything that the others that have come before. And I'm even talking about the non-human ancestors, right? Because they've taught us many things too. They've given us life. Think
Yeah.
about it, the animals, the plants that have fed us to
So now
be here.
you make it even more complicated. You say the price that it it took actually for us to be here, and now you say, oh, it's not just about humans. Maybe go all the way back. Yeah, wow.
Exactly. There's so much. And you can go all the way back to our source, creator, or whatever we want to call it, God, or whatever our name for that is, universe, whatever. You know, the point is, it's all the way back to that original ancestor, you know, and the dreamer of a world. And already, look at this. We've got this entire cosmos that we're a part of. And so I think we have to recognize ourselves as creators. We are, right? Because we're shaping, we are that species that has evolved within our ecosystem that is able to actually make tools, create, work together. And I love the work of a gentleman called Yuval Harari. You know, he talks about the myths we tell ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves. And, you know, he says, so the point of this is, what narrative will we agree on for the future? So whilst I think it's really important to live in this moment, right? I think there's something about presencing. There is something about understanding that my words, my actions, my values, my everything I do in this moment actually is the thing that shapes the next and the next and the next. In other words, shapes the future.
Yeah.
So it is important that I am absolutely present right here. But it is important that I understand how this is shaping over there.
Yes.
Right. And so, and that part over there on the other side, history, the part that I can learn from, it is also bringing in ingredients into that. And I think it is very important for us to go back, understand, look at that, be present in the moment, and begin to shape forward.
That's very another idea for an app, to actually measure the size of your influence. Actually, how many people do you inspire, influence really throughout your lifetime, and to what scale? this could be amazing, you know, because
We're
this is,
working on that app. We're working on that. We call it the Transform app. So some of my colleagues and I are working on that because
yeah,
and it's also measuring your own transformation and
yeah,
almost your impact, you
yeah,
know, because it is. And so you see how our individual expression,
yeah,
you put that together with more than 8 billion of us now,
yeah,
crossed that threshold a little while ago, and you put that all together and how together we're actually the designers, we are the creators of the world. So basically, if we don't like what we are part of right now, we're to blame. Because think about this, right? So one of the things that I've been following in some of my work is there's a group, they've done this survey. It's called the Deloitte Shift Index Survey. And one of the things they asked in there is they asked, across the board in different countries, different ethnicities, different ages, they asked people whether or not they liked the world they live in, they're a part of.
yeah.
And about 90% of people said no, they don't like the world they live in. And
Mhm.
then and when I do this in rooms as well, I have 100% people saying I don't like the world I live in. And then there is they asked another question. They said, do you like the way you are able to express yourself in this world? In other words, how you can be in this world, how you can do what you do and who you are, and 80% of people said no, they don't feel they're able to express themselves in the ways that they would want to, and that
But
they
I want to say something in regards, Ferial. May I interrupt? So just like you see with Chat GTP, for example, it has shown us that the better we ask the questions, the better we receive the answers we actually aim for. So I mean, let's say we start a survey, but with a positive kind of thinking, like do you love your family, right? Do you care for the people around you? What is your dream? And then ask them the same questions. You see, there has been a survey also with women, and they were asked also some questions, but they were not asked for their identity, and their answers were completely free. But once they were asked to uh, um, register, to mention that they are females, everything was as expected socially. Now, the answers, everything, the mindset changed. So now I'm answering you as a female. So you see, we are influenced. This is why it's so important, the choice of word and the stories that we tell. Like I said, the songs that we sing, right? You wanted to play us a song. The games that we play, are these games that promote competition or collaboration?
So I think this is why what I've just tried to say before this is so important, because I think all of a sudden when we design from a different place, when we're not designing the world from, oh, I don't like this world, or, oh, so in other words, if we can give ourselves what we call in the word, and you mentioned it, stop.
Yeah.
In other words, stop co-creating, stop collaborating with that which which you are identifying is actually producing harm,
Yeah.
whether it is for yourself, whether it is for nature, or whether it is for other human beings, right?
Yeah.
It is, stop doing it.
Yeah.
And we find that very, very difficult to do, Sharon, because what's happening is we become overly invested in those things. So
Yeah.
I'll give you little examples of that, right? So let's say you're in a relationship that's really not working, but because I picked this man, I got kids with this person, I got, we bought a house together, we, etc., etc., etc. You will remain, no matter if this thing is not working for you or that person, or even anybody else that gets into contact with that relationship, including and especially children, you will continue in that because you are overly invested in it. Now, By this, I am not provocating that relationships break down. I'm saying that you deal with the challenge in that relationship and you just don't let it keep going on, right?
The more invested you are in something, the harder it's for you to let go.
To let go, exactly. And then take that to our societal level. Take it now to fossil fuels, right?
Exactly.
We are so overly invested in, I mean, think about the plants that we've got all around the world right now producing all these fossil fuels and the people that are paid through this process. And of course, the fat cats on the top making all the big bucks. I mean, do you really want to change that? Of course not. We are overly invested in something that clearly, I mean, the jury is out. We have the evidence. Scientifically, data is there to show us this is not serving our society, but we are unable to divest because
that's why it's so difficult to reset, like you say. But it's really about the new narratives. The more convincing they are, the more truth they are, right? Because we all want
So let me take you through that 3 stop, reset, go you mentioned earlier, right? So the stop part was what I just said. Then you've got the reset part, and the reset part is where we now begin to explore alternatives. So in other words, the thing that you were overly invested in, it did have a good consequence for you. In other words, we were getting energy, right? From, let's use fossil fuels. We were getting energy from that. So there's something that we liked about it, but it also had these other negative characteristics, which we've now discovered it has. So the problem is that what we want is we want to find a solution that can still give us the value we were receiving without the negative consequences. So the reset part becomes now researching, resetting, redesigning, renegotiating, reevaluating, reimagining. So it's all those re's of how do we create that same value without the negative consequences? Now, of course, once you start to research and you start to put energy into that, you start finding things that start working, right? We've now discovered things like we can use, we've got loads of renewable energy sources. Now, they're not necessarily all the best answer or the best response to that, but some of them are starting to show real promise, right? So what you do is you begin to divest energy into that, and then you start to go in that direction. But so that's the stop, reset, go. But the beautiful thing about stop, reset, go, and why we see this as such an evolutionary kind of beautiful process, it's already something we're doing, right? We're just asking people to make it conscious, to make it explicit, to make it something that you consciously do. And what I mean by this is it is not a linear process. It's not a stop, reset, okay, now we go. No. It is stop, reset, go. Stop, reset, go. Stop, reset, go. Because the way that progress works, because remember what we said earlier, Sharon, we said we never know the whole story. Even you, I've known you now for a while, right? But I can guarantee you what I know about you is probably a point percent of who is Sharon. And the same as in Ferial. So how do I suppose that when I'm designing a solution in any aspect of the world or of science, so in other words, progress, right? So progress almost has embedded in it the opposite, which is regress. So you think about the progress that we do this 1 step forward, 2 step back dance each time, and it is a dance. But what is so beautiful about doing stop, reset, go is that when you're doing it fast, when you're doing it all the time as part of your process of development, as part of your process of innovation, you have the advantage of mitigating the negative consequences faster. So in other words, what would have initially looked like these massive molehills, they look like molehills when they start out, and eventually there are these mountains. So when I'm talking now about the trauma that we talked about, now it's looking like, oh my gosh, how are we going to overcome this? Because it has become so complex. But if we start to practice this wisdom, we call it a wisdom finding mechanism, stop, reset, go, all of a sudden you can You can intervene sooner and stop the molehills from becoming mountains. So I liken the complexity often to, I don't know if you've ever done this, but as a child, if you're taking some ball of wool yarn and you throw it up in the sky and you let it fall on the floor, oh my gosh, have you tried to untangle that? It's just, and the more you're trying to untangle, the more it becomes tangled. So I think that's what our complexity looks like, because you said it earlier, you said we are one. Now that's kind of a big word, right? But it means
I
that
didn't say
our
we
lives.
are. I said I am the whole humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So
And you're not just humanity, you are everything, and everything is you.
yeah, that's okay. There are different layers to it. I mean, this is like this is through the scale, the consciousness scale that I see. This is civilization type 1. Yeah, there are like 2, like a star, and then 3, like a galactic, type of civilization. When you understand that the cosmos, it's not just about Gaia, the Earth is living, but the whole universe is conscious. The whole universe is conscious. There is consciousness in everything. Like so the thing is, when I say I am the all humanity, it's like same with the butterfly. It was a caterpillar, it grows, it changes, but it's still a caterpillar. And that's the difference between change to transformation. A caterpillar doesn't speak butterfly language, and a butterfly is not any longer a caterpillar, is a completely new being. It's like, and together he had to go through this. It's like a reincarnation. It is like he ended to the stage of being a pupa, not looking for resources from the outside or the answers out there, but from within, to see the light from within. And this is how we can reach.
So I want to bring us back to the SDGs then and say, now, how do we accomplish this massive kind of goals that we set out for ourselves, right? And then I have to ask the question, perhaps these goals that we've set out for ourselves might even be incomplete. And can we for a moment think about that? Because what we design today as looking like the solution, because we're living in this dynamic environment, we can't design these static solutions. In other words, the UN should be re-engineering and reimagining these goals ever so often, because the world is changing, and what it's requiring and what you understood yesterday was less than what you understand tomorrow or the day after or a month or a year from now, because we are expanding in our consciousness. We're expanding what we're understanding about ourselves and the world.
Absolutely, but you see how this influenced the world. From the SDGs, now we have inner development goals.
Now that is what I was about to say. So for the first time, the UN, I think it was last year, that they acknowledged, wow, we need another SDG, which was this inner development. And I think this inner development is our leveraging point, because so my work really exists in the space between inner and outer development. And what I mean by this is, so I think it was Einstein that said this once. Now, I'm not saying it originated from Einstein, but Einstein, I read that he had said this. He said, we cannot design a world that we want with the same mindset that we designed the one that we have. In other words, how do we transcend? And that was something that Danila Meadows, she was a systems scientist, and she's now passed on. But I love her work, because she said she would always talk about the various ways in which one could intervene into a system that is not performing optimally, right? And she takes you through many different ways, but then she says the greatest of these is our ability and capability. So those are two things, ability and capability, to continually, that's another word, continually transcend our current paradigms. So we're not talking about transcending your paradigm. We're talking about the ability to evolve, the ability to continually transcend our paradigms? In other words, can we look at nature? Can we learn from the fact that nature is always evolving to adapt to a changing environment, an ever-changing dynamic environment? And we're a part of that, and we're nature.
Yeah.
So you asked, can we reach our goal? Can we make this happen? And I'm going to say we can and we cannot. So I'm going to be funny again, but why do I say we cannot? I'm saying if we're going to remain in our current paradigm. So I think, Sharon, we're at an inflection point in our history, but it is beautiful. And as I stood at the ocean this afternoon, I said, am I able to? And I think every human that is listening to me right now, you got to ask yourself a question. Are you able? Do you have the ability and the capability to continually transcend your own paradigm? And what I mean by this is in your own life. And as you do it in your own life, you begin to, what you're designing from that new space becomes regenerative, and it keeps being more and more regenerative because you're always transcending your paradigms, which means you're contributing
to the
world we want to see.
Something, like I think you mentioned before, when the people were asked if they're satisfied with their life, and most said no. I think most people do want to transform, transcend, to become the better version of themselves. They really do want, but they are way too busy, just making a living, or
they have to stop. They've got to stop.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So it's
how do you do that?
Hardest thing, like mission impossible, to get yourself out of the comfort zone, or even if it's not comfort, it's just the hard working, busy daily life.
But then, do you see what I'm saying? It's like even our whole journey, when you look at it,
I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying I'm giving you like one of my ideas how to reach there. It's really about future imagery. Actually, like, imagine what is the world, what is the lifestyle, who is it that you want to be. Imagine, like, clearly imagine this. It's like they do a guided meditation. This is a beautiful way to go there. This is one. And
that's
two,
a starting point.
Yeah. And two, it's really ferial to have people such as yourself, that they are so open to help and support and advice. And so if somebody came to you now and says, hey, Ferial, I want to change my life, one of your friends, you would definitely, you'll offer yourself right away to come up and think of solutions and ideas, what it takes together, new viewpoints, new ideas, new connections. And that's the way. Like, it's like the metaphor. If someone is in the mud, he can escape on his own. He needs someone to reach its end. We are all interconnected. Like the sequoia trees, the roots are only 5-6 meter deep in the ground, and they are like 4,000 years old, older than Moses, our rabbi, and all the ancient big sages. But what's unique is that the roots spreads, horizontal, and they connect to each other. So the whole forest becomes one. They're all entangled, interconnected, interweaved. So our story, our collective story, is interconnected. We are interweaved in an interbeing, right? This is another key word and part of the new storytelling and the paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And when you say go, like reset and go, so the reset is not something that you could do on your own. It's really about us doing it together.
And I think that's the other part of it. Is so I read this once, and it really kind of hit me when it said, until the pain of change becomes less than the pain, or less than the pain of what you're experiencing, or more than the pain that you're experiencing at the moment. Do you understand? So in other words, the pain of us being in this world has to be greater than the cost of change.
But do you really believe in that? Like, do you think it must, like, hurt so much for us to change?
I think if it didn't, then we would have already been doing that. Now I know some of us are doing that. So I think that's my indictment today to everybody here. That is what I am saying. I'm saying today, you've been on this incredible story, your own story. You've been on this credible part of this beautiful cosmic story. Now, today, you kind of have this choice now. Your choice is just this. I think we're just in a part of a story, in a part of this story. I don't think we're at a bad part or a good part. It's part of our becoming, our inter-becoming. But the question becomes, so here's the thing, nature is another story, because nature does not, so evolution does not exist for mankind or for human beings. Let's change that word, does not exist for us. Its goal, in other words, is not us. Its goal is life. In other words, if we are the challenge, if we are the ones that are causing the balance of nature to be out, then what is nature going to do? I mean, nature is like any other reasonable system. It's going to eject that part. So in other words, we have a choice here. Our choice is, will we, like SRG, will we consciously evolve ourselves to be in alignment with nature? In other words, we would then hang around for a lot longer because we're contributing to that balance now, right? Or will we allow ourselves to be unconsciously evolved into who knows what? Because nature is going to set the balance. That's what it is.
What you're saying, I mean, like in more positive words, it's that all it takes is to believe, just like in the Disney.
A decision. It's our decision in this moment. Are we going to wait till our pain is too great? Because our scientists are telling us, they're telling us things are not looking good over here. So will we wait till we literally can't do anything? And if we will just have to evolve and have to do whatever we need to do. And as I said, then we don't really have much agency into how that evolves, right? Because nature will just do what it needs to. It will reset. Now, but right now, we still have that bit of choice of, will I willingly? And that was my choice. And I think you have made that choice. We have said we want to evolve. And that meant us having to do some inner development, that inner development of changing our paradigm, looking at how we fit into this world, who we are, what do we bring, how can we help, right? And that's what we are doing. And this is what is the hope here, Sharon. There are incredible humans all around the world right now that are stepping up and saying, I am going to take the responsibility. But we need more of us to do that. And so if you're listening, that's what I would ask you. I would ask, would you be willing to take that responsibility? To understand your role, your part, and how you can effectively contribute. And the thing is, sometimes we have people who are stepping up because they don't know how to human well together. They're still messing up. They're still fighting with one another over silly things, over fundings and crazy things, where it's actually, how about we have our stop? We address our pain, because that is the pain showing, right? When we do that, all of a sudden we come into a whole different place. I think it was in the morning that you said this to me, Sharon. It was the 4-letter word, love. Moment I change. So I'm going to use a word that perhaps not many are used to, but frequency. We understand frequency when it comes to technology, right? And you have to tune into a radio station in order to hear it clearly. And I think we're at that moment where we've got to tune in. And that tuning in is it's a bit hard. I mean, I don't know about you, Sharon, but for me, some of that tuning was hard. It was unlearning.
It's an every moment work. It's not like you become an expert. It's different. This is like it's a spiritual fusion, when you talk about this frequency. It's really about something big needs to happen inside each and every one of us. And you know, the challenge 18, it's all about the commitment to change your habits, behavior, lifestyle.
That is it, I think. So thank you for challenge 18, because
Yeah,
it's
but
like a wand that you walk, like a magic wand. I mean, it's not magic, but if the way that we understand it, right? Imagine you're walking around with a magic wand, and everywhere you're touching, everything's just changing. So that's what happens when you carry a different, you embody, I call it, that different frequency. Wherever you go, it changes everything because it changes everyone. People feel it, don't they? Like they feel, I mean, I do, I experience that. So I'm saying that more of us, I would ask us, would you be willing to step up to that? Because that is how we change. You asked me, can we? And I'm going to say, hell yes. But this is how we do it.
and join challenge 18.
Join challenge 18 if you need to join, whatever you need to do, whatever you need to speak to, who you need to. And you said it earlier, but find your way. We each have our different way of doing that tuning in, but find your way.
Yeah.
Can you look at yourself in the mirror? Can you say, Sharon or Ferial or James or Jane or John or Terry, when you look at yourself in that mirror and you say, yeah, human, you know how to human well. You're doing a good job. And that's the thing when you understand, yeah, I am humaning well. And I'm not talking about a prideful, I'm talking about a, you know, the price that you paid for that humaning well.
I think we need to invent like a magical mirror that when you look in the mirror, you see the collective face of everyone around you.
And you know what? Do we know that humans, I mean, I want to say that it's sometimes hard, right? Because some of us have a lot of stuff all over us, but actually we're so beautiful. You know, and when we really just look at, when we try and find in every one of us that deeper beauty, I think when we can call it out in one another as well, because sometimes our pain is big, you know? I think of people who have been going through being a refugee or being in slavery or being in, I mean, my ancestors were slaves coming from, you know, Indonesia to Africa. So there was pain, you know, but that moment when you can, when another human loves you enough,
So what do you think happens after 2030? You say this is when we connect more to the SDGs. Now we'll work also on the inner development goals, the regenerative development goals, the Scottish development goals, the Jewish development. Like, I mean, or it's completely not goals, maybe about the time for action and build up new systems. Like you say, reset. It's not about, you know, doing the same thing like you said and expect things to change. You completely need to change your mindset. So
you know what, when you change that mindset, you just said that the moment you can keep transcending the paradigm, the moment you are stop resetting and going continually, I think you don't even need any of that stuff. What's happening is your frequency changes. So the moment whatever you're expressing, however what you're designing becomes the solutions, because you're so that word you used earlier, connected, I was still going to say something about this. In science, that, you know, they often refer to as an entanglement. So if you understand that your actions, every one of them, have these far-reaching ripple effects. So the moment that you design from having you understanding that connection, you design with a very different heart, with a very different mind. And I think the SDGs just become naturally reached in that process. So 2030, well, let's see what we will do. That's all I can say.
I have a different question, maybe a bit to challenge it. But you know, not everybody believes in the SDGs and the UN and its motives. So do you see any alternatives for maybe that kind of audience, for people that, you know, want to see a better world, but for them SDGs are part of a conspiracy? So, or even climate change is a conspiracy. This is so crazy.
Yeah, there are lots of things. I mean,
Yes,
what do you believe And now do you see the thing about our story, how we've got all these 150 versions, right? So my point is, the moment you stop focusing on any of it and you focus here, right here, because you are nature's response in this moment. Consider that for a moment, right? I told you when I was in Africa, I stood there and all of my ancestors were speaking through me. And what I mean by this is we're echoing. Like, I mean, when your mom and dad got together, literally there was these millions of sperms, right? And they picked you because nature always picks its best advantage. In other words, you had the right ingredients to be the representative of your line of people in this moment. In other words, that is why it is such a important part for you to find out and to understand, why am I here? What is it that I have to contribute to the story? Because I think in doing so, firstly, you honor all those that have come. That is the greatest worship that you give them, because you're going, I am going to work hard to make sure that my contribution is a great one. And that's what I'm doing, right? And I think when you don't focus anymore, like, as I said, there's no more conspiracy. Some of these things might be true, some of it might not be true. I don't know. But what I've come to learn in my 50 years is focus in. And when you're focusing in and you're changing your frequency, that which you bring changes everything. And that begins to challenge all the other fluff that is not working and not producing regeneration, not producing sustainability, not producing what we want to experience as our human experience. So I would say, forget about all of that. I mean, there's a moment that I went down that road and I looked at all these things, and I would still talk about them sometimes, and probably they're good for fireside chats and things, but don't focus in on that. You be the change that you want to see. You embody the change that you want to see in the world. And that's probably the last and the best thing that I can say is, be the change you want to see in the world.
Beautiful, beautiful, Ferial. Thank you so much for all these beautiful words of wisdom, ancient future wisdom, toward enlightenment. It's really touching the divine. I think there is a Meister Eckhart. He said that like the seed of the pineapple become a pine tree, not pineapple, pine tree. I don't remember which trees, but I'm just making up the trees. Or the seed of the maple tree becomes a maple tree, and
it doesn't, yeah.
And the seed of God, the divine, becomes us, human. So it's really for us to decide, if we...
What seeds will we sow, right? Will we sow seeds of goodness, of love, of regeneration, of peace, of joy, of happiness? Because that will be what we will live in. We will have a harvest.
I have another way to say exactly the same thing. In the soil of your attention, what thoughts is it that you choose to plant? Because from these seeds will grow trees and fruits.
Absolutely. So do you see, when you're focusing in on conspiracies, on what's not right, and when you're focusing there, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Okay.
You're not changing anything.
Yeah. We need this app, with the scales, so people could actually start seeing. And this magic mirror, so you see the collective face of everyone around you, and how to make this without using special effects to make this face looks prettier.
Exactly. Don't put special backgrounds. Be authentic.
because I maybe I'll give an exercise like from Challenge 18 just for an end. So we have our social needs. and it's also for you to think, and if you want, you can share this with me later through WhatsApp. And this is personal, so I'm not asking you to ask now. But our social needs are, one, to be seen. So think, who are the people that it's really important for you that they will see you?
Mm-hmm.
And now, how do they act?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how do they think? And then look at yourself, because you are the same. So this is about to be seen. Now it's about to belong, right? We all wish to belong to, this is how we evolved as social beings, social needs. So where do you feel that you belong? Which kind of circles, communities, family? And again, how do they think, behave, right? And so on. And then again, look at yourself. And
And
and and the last one is our social need, and you are there. It's our sense of purpose. So what is it that you are here in the world to do? And okay, once you understand, just do it. Just focus on it.
just do it.
Yeah, just
Like
focus on your sense of purpose. And this is exactly what we are doing, as hard as it may be. And it's like it's the biggest challenge, but I'm not saying life is a challenge. I'm saying life is love.
I say it's an adventure, even with all of that. Think about it. And Alan Watts really. So if you want to inspire yourself, go listen to Alan Watts. He has the most beautiful voice, and he's passed on now as well. But he just has inspired me so much to understand my deeper connectedness. And so with that, before we play the song that I wanted to play now, this is a song that many of us have heard. Right? It's called A Million Dreams. If you remember, it was part of the movie The Greatest Showman. And one of the things, I think I listened to this and one day it just really hit me. So I want you listening right now. We're going to play ourselves out with this song, right?
Could you recite the main line in the song that caught you?
I think it's that part of, they may think I'm crazy, right? But it's almost like every night I close my eyes and I see the world I want to live into. It's like I see the world. I can feel it. And sometimes you can touch it. It's like it's breath. Like my friend Alexander Laszlo, one of a very awesome man that I know, and many of you might know here. And Alexander would say, he would write and say, it's like on a good day, you can feel the breath of that new world, like right here with you. And I see it sometimes when I meet amazing people like Sharon, and I meet others, some of our friends that we work with in this space. And that makes me just feel that new world so strongly. But, it says that it's going to be a million dreams that's going to get us there. And what I mean, I'm going to say it's going to be 8 billion. It's going to be all of your dreams that gets us there. All of your visions of a better future for all of us.
Beautiful. Thank you. So thank you so much, Ferial. So now we're gonna listen to the song, and again, thank you for everyone watching this, and I hope you learned a thing or two. And looking forward to seeing you in our next weekly webinar. So thanks. And now Ferial, can you share the song? All participants.
Just give me a second.
Now you can.
I'm just going to pick one. But what I want to do as well is I really just want us to, don't even watch the movie,
I'm in my second home.
I'm so sorry. We just have to get past this. Don't watch any of that, right? But actually just close your eyes, right? So at the moment, I'm just gonna stop my voice here. So Sharon, you can just close off, and when I get it set up, I will play it, right? Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a wonderful chat. Thanks, Sharon. And I hope to be back and chat more. And please follow our work. I work on something called SRG Journeys, and my organization is called Ignite Life. You can follow us. You can see us on LinkedIn and other places. I'll pop in the chat while the song's playing, just some information if you want to get a hold of me. And yeah, the other parties collaborate. Let's work together and make our world just that bit better.
Amen.